What's going on, guys? Welcome to my Descendant build series for the First Descendant. Today we're going over my 2.0 builds for Serena.
I will not be afraid. I will surely restore hope.
Serena has a very unique playstyle. She can be spec'd for both skill power or firearms. She even deals extra firearm damage while airborne. What makes her so unique is her ability to glide and float in the air and rain damage down on her enemies from above. Her fourth ability is multiplied by her total HP, so stacking as much HP as possible is very important for maximizing damage. If you need a breakdown of her full ability kit, check out my first build video for her. It has a much more in-depth description. I will link it down below. She currently has two transmods, Him and Divine Surge, both of which are great in their own way. Him alters her third ability, while Divine Surge alters her fourth. For gun builds, you'll want to use Him, and for skill power builds, you'll want to use Divine Surge. And with that, let's move on to the builds. This first build is for skill power, and it uses the Divine Surge transmod. For the trigger module, you'll want to use Battering Ram, which triggers from her fourth ability. This not only deals continuous damage, but also lowers the enemy's defense and attribute resistances by a maximum of 25%, thus allowing you to deal even more damage. Note that this stacks with the first ability's fire resistance debuff. This build is not only a lot of fun to use, but it's also very powerful. The goal is to flash the enemies with her first ability as often as possible while using her fourth to slam the ground. Slamming the ground not only deals damage, but also leaves ground effects that cause additional dot damage. This build is great for mobbing large groups and in large open areas. It's very effective in all mobbing content, including within the Axiom planes. The mods for this build are Divine Surge, MP Collector, Nimble Fingers, MP Conversion, Focus on Fire, Spear and Shield, Skill Expansion, Strong Mentality, Fire Amplification, Multi-Talented, and Battle of Stamina. Here is the RK tuning for this build. And you'll want to use the Burn Vulnerability Mutant Cell. The next build is for firearms, and it uses the Him transmod. Serena's fourth ability makes any weapon a multi-hit weapon. The goal here is to stay in the air, shoot her first, pop her fourth, and then fire away. Make sure you always use her first ability as it lowers the enemy's resistance to fire damage and feeds you back ammo as you shoot. The trigger module for this build is Storm Bullet, which places a continuous damage zone on the ground when you use her first ability. Since you use the first ability so often, this trigger module works great and adds some really nice extra damage. And as I said earlier, her fourth ability scales off of her max HP, so stack as much as you can. The mods for this build are Him, MP Collector, MP Conversion, Nimble Fingers, Focus on Fire, Skill Expansion, Passionate Sponsor, Maximize Conservation, Shot Focus, Increased HP, and HP Amplification. The third build is also for guns, and it is designed for Void Erosion Purges. This build uses no transmod, and the trigger module for it is RK Leak. RK Leak triggers off of her fourth. It lowers ability cost and increases skill power modifier while also feeding her back MP as you shoot. Same as before, fly up, shoot your first, pop your four, and fire away. The Malevolent and the Exterminator are the best weapons for this build in my opinion. They absolutely demolish everything in your path. The mods for this build are either no transmod, or you can use him if you wish, your choice. MP collector, multi-talented, nimble fingers, overwhelming HP, skill expansion, skill extension, MP conversion, stim accelerant, maximize duration, and increased HP. Here is the arcade tuning for these two firearm builds, and they use no mutant cell. Now, the bossing build uses a very specific setup, so I'm going to come back around to that here in a bit. For now though, let's move on to the weapons. For weapons, I use the Ancient Knight, the ATAMs, the Malevolent, and the Exterminator, depending on what I'm doing. The Ancient Knight is great for fast firing and excels at bossing and hitting weak points. The ATAMs is great for high damaging shots and downing lower level colossi, usually in one shot. Well, most often in one shot, let's be honest. The Malevolent is great for large groups, like while mobbing or in the Void Erosion Purge, and I use the Exterminator for its raw destructive power. That thing is an absolute beast, especially in Serena's hands. When her fourth is active, the Exterminator absolutely shreds everything very quickly, and it is very satisfying to see. And here are the builds for those. For the Fellow, I prefer the Snowy Sled Dog for the MP regen. Now, you can use the Vesper's Hunting Dog for the ammo, but with the ammo regen from her first ability, I really don't see the point, and I find that the Sled Dog is far more useful, but you do you. For the Reactor, you'll want to use the Burning Singularity Reactor. I recommend focusing on things like duration up, cost down, skill power boosts, etc. You can also use a Burning Phase Reactor whenever you're using either of her firearm builds in order to maximize the damage output of her fourth ability. For her external components, you'll want to use the Slayer set for the extra rounds and the skill power. For Inversion Reinforcement, I use Fire Focus rounds for the additional fire damage, Firearm Control Mechanism for the extra multi-hit, and Selective Neural Stimulation for the MP regen. Now, let's circle back around to the bossing build. This build has a very specific setup that is different from all the others. It is designed specifically for Wall Crasher. This build will allow you to remain in the air for the entire duration of the fight and deals an insane amount of damage. Now, keep in mind, this build can be used for any boss, but it is especially designed with Wall Crasher in mind and focuses on weak point damage and constant flight. Spam your first as often as you can to keep your ammo regen and the fire resistance up. Then pop your 4 and alternate between your 3 and jumping to remain in the air. Focus on the weak points and the boss will simply melt. This build uses the HIM transmod and the RK Leak trigger module. The mods for this build are HIM, Final Wish, Maximize Conservation, Focus on Dimension, Nimble Fingers, Maximize Duration, Skill Extension, MP Conversion, Focus on Fire, Stim Accelerant, and Increased HP. For this build, you'll want to use the Ancient Knight using this build, a Burning Phase Reactor, a 2-piece Ascending Armory, and a 2-piece Shell Crusher for the external components, and this arcade tuning, which does not use a mutant cell. The Inversion Reinforcement and the Fellow and whatnot, that's all the same as stated above. Overall, Serena is a phenomenal Descendant and she is super fun to play, she is really good at mobbing and a truly top-tier bosser. I highly recommend her, especially if you're into fast-paced playstyles or gun-based Descendants. Check out my other Descendant build videos, and please feel free to ask any questions you may have about this build or about Serena herself. And that's it for this video, guys. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Later.